Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a graphic designer who works freelance from my tiny studio apartment in downtown Seattle. But that Saturday evening at Le Bernardin, the most expensive restaurant in the city, in front of 20 of my relatives, my cousin Jessica looked me straight in the eye and said, "Rachel, this table is for family. Go find a spot outside." Have you ever been treated like a stranger by your own blood? Like you're some kind of burden they have to tolerate? Comment below and share your story because what happened next changed everything. The reservation was for 8:30 p.m. I'd driven 3 hours from Seattle to Portland for my uncle's 60th birthday celebration. The valet took my beat-up Honda Civic, and I walked into this place where the cheapest appetizer costs more than most people's grocery budget. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters, and actual tuxedos. I felt so out of place in my Target dress and discount heels. 20 family members were already seated around this massive oval table. Uncle Mike at the head, Aunt Carol beside him, and Jessica holding court like she always does. Designer everything, fresh manicure, that smug smile she's perfected since we were kids. When she saw me approach, her expression shifted to this look of disgust, like I'd tracked mud through her pristine world. "Oh," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Rachel's here." The conversation died. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, and I felt this familiar knot in my stomach. The same feeling I'd had at every family gathering since I was 7 years old. Always the extra one. Never quite fitting in. "Hi, everyone," I said, trying to smile. "Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Traffic was—" "Rachel," Jessica interrupted, standing up slowly. She was wearing this black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my rent. "This table is for family. Go find a spot outside." The words hit me like a slap. Around the table, people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some looked down at their phones. Others suddenly became very interested in the breadbasket. Not one person said anything. Not Uncle Mike, whose birthday this was supposed to be. Not my own mother, who was sitting right there next to Aunt Carol. What?" I stammered. Jessica laughed, this cold, tinkling sound. "Come on, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We booked this table for family only. You know how these fancy places are about seating arrangements." My cheeks burned. I could feel my hands starting to shake. "But I am family. I'm your cousin. I drove 3 hours. Rachel, honey," my mother finally spoke up, but not to defend me. "Maybe you could just, don't make a scene. There might be a nice spot at the bar." Don't make a scene. Those 4 words that had followed me my entire life. Don't make a scene when they forgot to save you a seat at Christmas dinner. Don't make a scene when they planned the family vacation without telling you. Don't make a scene when they had the family photo taken while you were in the bathroom. The waiter appeared beside me, this young guy with kind eyes who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. "Miss, there's actually a lovely table by the window if you'd prefer." "She'll take it," Jessica said quickly. "Won't you, Rachel?" I looked around that table one more time, at faces I'd known my whole life, people who'd bounced me on their knees when I was little, who'd come to my high school graduation, who'd promised they'd always be there for me. Not one of them met my eyes. "Rachel always gets dramatic about stuff like this," Jessica said to the table, her voice carrying that fake sweet tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "Remember her Sweet 16? She threw a fit because she didn't like where we put her at the kids' table." A few people chuckled nervously. My cousin Mark nodded like he remembered, even though he hadn't even been there. "I was 17, I said quietly, "and it was the kids' table because you told everyone I was still in middle school." "See?" Jessica spread her hands. "Drama. This is exactly why—" "It's fine," I cut her off. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'll take the other table." The waiter led me across the restaurant to a small table by the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was actually beautiful, overlooking the city lights, but it might as well have been on Mars. Through the glass partition, I could see my family laughing and talking like nothing had happened, like I'd never been there at all. The waiter handed me a menu, and I noticed his name tag said Marcus. He looked like he wanted to say something, but professional training won out. "Can I start you with something to drink, miss?" I wanted to say water. I wanted to order the cheapest thing on the menu and disappear. But something in me snapped. Maybe it was watching Jessica pose for selfies with the family. Maybe it was seeing my mother laugh at something Uncle Mike said, not even glancing in my direction. "Your most expensive coffee," I said. Marcus blinked. "The Blue Mountain coffee is $45 per cup, miss. It's quite..." "Perfect." He hesitated. "Are you sure?" "It's quite expensive for coffee and..." "Marcus," I said, looking right at him, "I know exactly what I'm doing." While I waited for my coffee, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I'd memorized but never called. Harrison and Associates, estate law, my grandfather's lawyer. The phone rang once, twice. "Rachel?" David Harrison's voice was surprised. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Is everything all right?" I glanced toward the family table where Jessica was now standing up, probably telling some story that had everyone in stitches. "David, I need to ask you something. The inheritance from Grandpa Joe. How much did you say the family business was worth again?" "The Chen family construction empire? With the real estate holdings and active contracts, we valued it at approximately $42 million. Why do you ask?" My hands went numb. I'd heard the number before, of course, when David had read me Grandpa's will. But somehow, sitting here alone while my family celebrated without me, it hit different. "And they don't know," I said. It wasn't a question. "No, Rachel. As per your grandfather's explicit instructions, the will reading was private. He was very clear that you were to be the sole heir, and that the information should remain confidential until you decided otherwise." Through the window, I watched Jessica pull out her phone and start taking pictures. A family group shot, Uncle Mike in the center, everyone gathered around him, huge smiles. The birthday boy surrounded by his loving family. I wasn't in a single photo. "Rachel?" David's voice pulled me back. "Are you there?" "I'm here," I said. "David, I think it's time." Marcus appeared with my coffee, setting it down carefully on the white tablecloth. Steam rose from the delicate porcelain cup, and the aroma was incredible. $45 for a cup of coffee. Jessica would have a heart attack. "Time for what?" David asked. I took a sip of the Blue Mountain coffee. It was extraordinary, rich and complex, and worth every penny. Time for them to know who they're really dealing with. "Are you certain? Once this information is public, there's no taking it back." I looked through the glass again. The waiter was approaching their table with what looked like the check. A big silver tray with a black leather folder. I watched as he set it down in front of Uncle Mike, who opened it and immediately went pale. Then he showed it to Aunt Carol, whose mouth fell open. She passed it to my mother, who actually gasped out loud. Like a chain reaction, shocks spread around the table as they saw the total. I couldn't hear them through the glass, but I could read lips well enough. $2,200 for one dinner. And suddenly, all those confident faces didn't look so confident anymore. Jessica was frantically waving her hands, clearly trying to figure out who was going to pay. Uncle Mike was patting his pockets like his wallet might have magically grown thicker. My mother was shaking her head, pointing at her purse and mouthing, "I don't have that much." And that's when I stood up. I walked across the restaurant, my target heels clicking on the marble floor. Every step felt deliberate, powerful. The family table went quiet as I approached, all eyes on me again. But this time, the energy was different. This time, they needed something. "Rachel!" Jessica's voice was bright and fake. "How's your little table? We were just..." "Having trouble with the check?" I asked. Uncle Mike cleared his throat. "Well, there seems to have been some kind of mistake. This bill it's quite high." $2,200, I said. I wasn't asking. "Now, Rachel," my mother started, "we're handling this. You don't need to..." "Worry about it?" I finished. "Like how you didn't worry about where I was sitting tonight?" The table went silent again. I could see Marcus hovering nearby, probably wondering if he was about to witness a family meltdown in his fancy restaurant. I reached into my purse and pulled out my wallet. A simple black leather wallet that looked completely ordinary, but inside, tucked behind my driver's license, was a piece of plastic that would change everything. "You know what?" I said, pulling out the card. "Let me take care of this." It was black, completely matte black with silver lettering, an American Express Centurion card, the kind of credit card that doesn't have a preset spending limit, the kind that requires a net worth of at least $10 million just to qualify. I set it down on the table, right next to the bill. Jessica stared at it like it might bite her. "What? What is that?" "My credit card," I said simply. "But it's—" Uncle Mike picked it up, turning it over in his hands. "This is a black card." "Yes." "Rachel," my mother whispered, "how do you have a black card?" I took another sip of my $45 coffee. It was getting cold, but it still tasted like victory. "The same way I have a table by the window, Mom. I can afford it." The confusion on their faces was almost comical. Here I was, the family screw-up in my Target dress and discount shoes, holding a credit card that cost more to own than most people made in a year. "But you're a freelance graphic designer," Jessica said weakly. "You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old Honda?" "I do," I agreed. "I also inherited something 2 years ago." "Inherited what?" Aunt Carol leaned forward. "From who?" I smiled, and for the first time all evening, it felt genuine. "From Grandpa Joe." The silence stretched until it was almost uncomfortable. I could see them doing the math in their heads. Grandpa Joe, who'd built Chen Family Construction from nothing, who'd owned half the commercial real estate in 3 counties, who died 2 years ago and left everything to— "No," Jessica breathed. "That's impossible. We would have known. We would have been at the will reading." "Would you?" I asked. "When was the last time any of you visited Grandpa Joe?" More silence. Guilty looks exchanged around the table. "I visited him every week," I continued. "Every Tuesday after work, I'd drive the 3 hours to his house. We'd have dinner together, watch old movies, talk about his business, his life, his plans for the future." "Rachel," Uncle Mike said slowly, "what exactly did he leave you?" I finished my coffee and set the cup down carefully. "Everything." The word hung in the air like smoke. Everything. The construction company, the real estate holdings, the investment portfolio, the beach house in California, the apartment building in downtown Seattle where I could have lived rent-free but chose not to because I wanted to earn my own way. Everything. Marcus appeared at my elbow, and I handed him my black card without looking away from my family's faces. "I'll be right back with this, Miss Chen," he said. "Miss Chen, not Miss Rachel. Miss Chen." Like I was somebody important, which I guess I was. Jessica's face had gone completely white. "Everything. But that's impossible. The company alone is worth millions. 42 million to be exact," I said quietly. "Plus the real estate portfolio." Uncle Mike dropped his fork. It clattered against his plate, the sound echoing in the sudden silence that had fallen over our corner of the restaurant. I could see other diners starting to glance our way, probably wondering why our table had gone from animated celebration to stunned silence. $42 million? Aunt Carol's voice came out as a squeak. I pulled out my phone and opened my voice recorder app, something I'd learned to do in family situations after years of being told I was making things up or remembering wrong. I set it on the table, the red recording light visible to everyone. "Rachel, what are you doing?" my mother asked nervously. "Documenting this conversation," I said simply. "For my records." "Your records?" Jessica laughed, but it sounded forced. "Rachel, this is family dinner, not a business meeting." "Is it?" I asked. "Because 20 minutes ago, you told me I wasn't family enough to sit at this table." I watched the color drain from her face as she realized her own words were being recorded. Around the table, my relatives shifted uncomfortably. Uncle Mike was loosening his tie. Aunt Carol kept opening and closing her mouth like a fish. "We didn't mean—" she started. "What exactly did you mean, Aunt Carol?" I kept my voice level, professional. "When you sat there and watched your niece get banished to eat alone because she wasn't family enough?" My phone buzzed. A text message from David Harrison. Rachel, I've prepared the documents you requested, ready to send to your family members whenever you give the word. I showed the text to the table. That's my lawyer, Grandpa Joe's lawyer, actually. David Harrison from Harrison and Associates. He's been managing the estate for 2 years. 2 years? Uncle Mike found his voice. You've known about this inheritance for 2 years and never said anything? Why would I? I met his eyes. When was the last time any of you asked how I was doing? Really asked, not just small talk at forced family gatherings? Silence. When was the last time any of you visited me? Called me? Included me in plans? More silence. Jessica, when you got engaged last year, did you ask me to be in your wedding? She looked down at her designer engagement ring. We had limited space. You had 12 bridesmaids. I saw the photos on Instagram. Rachel, my mother tried to interrupt. You're being unfair. Am I? I turned to her. Mom, when you and Dad went to Europe last summer, did you tell me about the trip? We didn't think you'd be interested. Or when Cousin Mark bought his new house, did anyone think to invite me to the housewarming? Mark was studying his napkin like it contained the secrets of the universe. You see, I continued, for 2 years, I've sat back and watched this family function perfectly well without me. Birthday parties I wasn't invited to, holiday celebrations I found out about through social media, family group chats I was mysteriously never added to. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my screenshots. Here's the family WhatsApp group, 43 members, every cousin, every aunt and uncle, every in-law. Notice anyone missing? I showed them the screen. The group was called Chin Family Forever and had been active for 3 years. 3 years of family coordination, planning, sharing news and photos. 3 years of my life that they'd collectively decided to exclude me from. Rachel, we can explain, Uncle Mike started. Can you? I cut him off. Can you explain why my own cousin felt comfortable telling me to sit outside like a dog? Can you explain why not one person at this table stood up for me? Marcus returned with my credit card and a small silver tray. Miss Chin, your card has been processed. Thank you for taking care of the bill this evening. Miss Chin. There it was again. The name that was on the deed to half the commercial real estate in 3 counties. The name on the company that employed over 300 people. The name that Jessica had just tried to exclude from the family table. Wait, Jessica said, her voice getting shrill. Wait. You paid the bill? With what money? With my money, I said. But you can't have $42 million. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that beat-up car. I choose to live simply, I said. There's a difference between can't afford and choose not to spend. My phone buzzed again. Another text from David. The inheritance documents are ready. Also, I should mention, your family members have been trying to contest the will. Jessica Chin filed paperwork last month claiming undue influence. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I showed the text to the table. Jessica, I said quietly, you tried to contest Grandpa's will? Her face went red. We just thought it didn't seem fair that you got everything when you barely knew him. Barely knew him? My voice rose for the first time all evening. I spent every Tuesday with him for 5 years. Every holiday when you all were too busy. Every birthday when he sat alone because his family couldn't be bothered to visit. That's not, she started. I have the visitor logs from his assisted living facility, I continued. Guess how many times you visited in the last 2 years of his life? Silence. 0. 0 times, Jessica. But you thought you deserved his life's work. Uncle Mike cleared his throat. Rachel, maybe we should discuss this privately. Why? I stood up. Because you're embarrassed? Because other people might hear that the Chen family treats their own blood like garbage? I gestured around the restaurant. Look around, Uncle Mike. See all these people trying not to stare? They just watched a family humiliate their own relative in public. They watched 20 adults gang up on one person and banish her from the table like she was some kind of disease. Rachel, please, my mother started. And then, I continued, my voice carrying across the restaurant now, Then you discovered that the person you just publicly humiliated is the one who owns everything you thought you were entitled to. A hush had fallen over the nearby tables. I could see people pulling out their phones, probably recording. In the age of social media, family drama in expensive restaurants was prime content. "The Chen Family Construction Company," I said, loud enough for the whole section to hear. $42 million in assets, 300 employees, projects in 7 states. All of it left to the granddaughter who was just told she wasn't family enough to sit at the family table. "Rachel, stop," Jessica hissed. "People are staring." "Good," I said. "Let them stare. Let them see how a family treats someone they thought had nothing." My phone rang. David Harrison. "Rachel?" His voice was concerned. "I'm seeing some unusual activity on the business accounts. It looks like someone has been trying to access the company's financial records." I put the phone on speaker. "What kind of activity, David?" "Multiple attempts to log into the accounting system. The IP addresses trace back to Jessica Chen and Michael Chen." Every eye at the table was now fixed on Uncle Mike and Jessica. Their faces had gone from white to green. "You tried to hack into the company computers?" I asked. We wanted to understand," Uncle Mike stammered. "You wanted to steal information about a business that doesn't belong to you," I said. "David, what's the legal term for that?" "Attempted corporate espionage. And given that they're not employees or shareholders, it's also computer fraud." The silence was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm and steady. "David, please send the inheritance documents to everyone at this table. Full disclosure. Let them see exactly what Grandpa Joe thought of their devotion to family." "Sending now," David said. One by one, phones around the table started buzzing. 20 people opening emails, reading the legal documents that laid out exactly how my grandfather had felt about his family's priorities. I watched their faces as they read. The will wasn't just a legal document transferring assets. Grandpa Joe had written personal notes about each family member, notes about missed visits, forgotten birthdays, unreturned phone calls, notes about who had asked him for money and who had asked him how he was feeling, notes about who had shown up to family events and who had shown up to his bedside. Jessica's face crumpled as she read her section. He says I only called when I needed money for the wedding." "Did you?" I asked. She couldn't answer. Uncle Mike's hands were shaking as he read. He knew. He knew about the business loan we asked for last year." "The loan you asked for," I said, "while he was dying in the hospital, while he was asking where his family was." Aunt Carol started crying. "He says we chose money over love." "Did you?" "Rachel," my mother's voice was broken. "He says here that you were the only one who visited just to visit. No agenda, no requests. Just to be with him." "That's right." "Why didn't you tell us?" she whispered. "Tell you what, Mom? That you should love your father without expecting something in return? That you should visit family because you care about them, not because it's obligatory?" I looked around the table at these people I'd known my whole life. People who had taught me to walk, to ride a bike, to believe in family loyalty. People who had just proven that their version of family had conditions I could never meet. "I spent 2 years wondering if I was crazy," I said, "wondering if I was actually the problem. If I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much trouble. But Grandpa Joe saw it too. He saw how you treated me, how you excluded me, how you made me feel like I was lucky to be tolerated." I picked up my purse and slung it over my shoulder. "So here's my gift to you all. The same gift you gave me tonight. Exclusion." "What do you mean?" Jessica asked, her mascara running. "I mean you're no longer welcome at Chen family construction events. You're no longer included in company decisions. You're no longer entitled to family discounts on our properties or services." "You can't," Uncle Mike started. "I can," I said. "I own it all. Every brick, every contract, every employee. And I get to decide who counts as family." I turned to Marcus, who had been discreetly standing nearby throughout this entire scene. "Marcus, the tip is on the table. Thank you for your excellent service tonight." I had left $1,000 in cash next to my empty coffee cup. "And Marcus, The bill is taken care of. All of it, including any additional charges for the entertainment. I looked back at my family one last time, 20 faces staring at me with shock, shame, and sudden understanding of what they'd lost. "Oh, and Jessica?" I said. "The table by the window? It was the owner's table. The restaurant reserves it for VIP guests and major investors." I smiled. "I own the building." I walked toward the exit, my discount heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear the chaos starting, voices raised in panic, chairs scraping, my mother calling my name. But I didn't turn around. Outside, the valet brought my beat-up Honda Civic to the front entrance. The same car I'd driven for 8 years because it was reliable and paid off. The same car I could replace with a Bentley tomorrow if I wanted to, but chose not to because I liked being underestimated. As I drove away from Le Bernardin, I caught a glimpse in my rearview mirror of my family spilling out onto the sidewalk, still arguing, still trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed with the first of what would be hundreds of messages over the next few days. Text after text, voicemail after voicemail, email after email. All from people who suddenly remembered they loved me, who suddenly wanted to explain, who suddenly realized what they'd lost. But I was done explaining. Done accepting scraps of affection when it was convenient for them. Done being grateful for the bare minimum of human decency. I had learned something important tonight. Family isn't about blood or obligation or shared genetics. Family is about showing up. It's about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's not convenient or profitable or Instagram-worthy. And I had spent 28 years with people who had never chosen me. So I chose myself. Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Have you ever been made to feel like you were asking for too much when all you wanted was basic respect? Share your story in the comments. I'll read every single one, and I'll believe you, because sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But you know what? We get to decide who deserves access to our lives. We get to decide what we'll accept and what we won't. We get to choose our own family. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is walk away.